Hi cuties, my name is Hanako Kozumi and this is the channel Nerdy Nekoma. Everything here is about Haikyuu chat stories and fanfic. Thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. Welcome back to Pretend to Get Beat Up, and we start with Hinata, in other words with the ship TsukiYamaKageHina. I hope you will like it. Again, a little content warning for injuries and, well, implied violence, though that wasn't the part before. And now, I hope you like it, I hope you enjoy it. Let's go. Hinata, one more thing. Huh? Yes? Suga-san? They won't think you're weak. Tsukishima, Yamaguchi and Kageyama love you very much. That's why they worry, but they don't think that you are weak. Please keep that in mind. Hinata wanted to protest at first, but it seemed pointless. All he wanted to do right now was to get inside and put on makeup, preferably before anyone noticed. He wanted to cuddle with his boyfriend and get the comfort he needed right now, but he was too afraid that they would notice. The ginger subconsciously started tracing the bruises on his cheek with his fingertips. You can do this. Good luck, Hinata. Thank you, Suga. The same goes for you. Suga cringed a little at the lack of enthusiasm and his usual upbeat spirit. No one would expect a person to be optimistic after everything that happened, but seeing Hinata like this still left him speechless, and he wished he could do more for the younger. With one last look at the orange curls, he turned around and left. The spiker opened the door as silently as possible and leaned against it for a second. A heavy sigh escaped his throat, and he barely managed to stop it from turning into a pained whine or a frustrated groan. His ribs hurt, and the blood was pooling in the injured areas, making them feel hot. Every breath hurt, and he could feel the tears stinging in his eyes again. Tears of frustration mixed with those of pain and threatened to spill over. What are you doing there? Hinata startled. He sniffled a little and wiped snot, tears and blood from his face. Nothing. His voice sounded shaky and he tried with all his strength to pull himself together. He had hoped so much that no one would see him. Why Tobio out of all people? Shoyo? Hinata took a last deep breath before turning around slowly. Kenma's words played on repeat in his head. We just pretend that it is a prank. He could see the change in his boyfriend's expression. It shifted from his usual grumpy face to utter shock. Kageyama slowly, hesitantly made a step towards the spiker. When he reached out his hands, trembling a little, Hinata caught them mid-air. He couldn't let him get too close, or he would notice that it was real. I'm sorry. He hated how his voice trembled and how weak he sounded. Kageyama remained silent and seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. He gulped. The seconds passed, but Kageyama stayed silent. So, what happened? His brows furrowed and his eyes frantically scanned over the wounds, over traces of blood and developing bruises. It's nothing. What happened? Hinata gulped. It's a prank. A heavy silence filled the room. What? It is a prank. Tobio? Kageyama yanked his hands away. The ginger barely managed to suppress a whimper threatening to escape his throat. His wrist hurt, and the pain in his knuckles flared up again. Kageyama took half a step back. His previously widened eyes narrowed, and he looked at Hinata with a mixture of shock and anger. Tobio. Why would you do that? I'm sorry. His voice sounded meek, and he barely managed to resist the urge to run into Kageyama's arms. The choice was taken from him when the setter abruptly turned around and left the hallway. Hinata was at the brim of breaking down. The events of before started crushing down on him, and his brain started catching up with everything that happened. He wished desperately for one of his boyfriends to hug him. Yet, he stubbornly made his way towards the bathroom to cover the bruises and hide away from the world. Hinata avoided the others all day, and when it was time to go to sleep, he took his things and got comfortable in the guest room. Yamaguchi and Tsukishima eyed them with concern written all over their faces. It was normal for Hinata and Kageyama to have little arguments occasionally, but not this. Not avoiding each other to the best of their abilities, and in Hinata's case, Yams and Tsuki as well. After Kageyama explained what happened, Tsuki made them tea, but when Yamaguchi tried giving a cup to Hinata, the ginger didn't even spare him a glance, and he just placed it on the nightstand. He sighed and returned to their bedroom. I don't understand it. Even if you two fought, why is he ignoring us as well? He carefully climbed into bed next to Kageyama and snuggled closer to his side. The setter was still visibly upset about the whole thing, and Yamaguchi couldn't blame him. He would have gotten a heart attack if he had been in his place. Maybe he's still embarrassed about the whole thing and tries to hide it. Yeah, maybe. I don't care, I just want to sleep. He grumbled and turned to his side. It didn't have the expected effect though, since he was currently laying in the middle of the bed and was immediately greeted by Tsukishima. The blonde gave him a soft smile and gently brushed a few strands of hair from his face. It left Kageyama flustered and annoyed since he wanted to be angry a little longer. I'm sure he didn't mean to scare you that much, especially not this shortly before your game this Friday. You know how easy it can be to persuade him sometimes. Kageyama's expression darkened again, but he leaned into Tsukishima's touch. That's no excuse. I know. He sighed and pulled the ravenet closer. But I'm sure we can fix this tomorrow. Yamaguchi hummed in agreement and they fell asleep shortly after. Everything is going to be alright. Hinata laid awake most of the night. He was exhausted, but the pain made it hard to sleep, and he didn't dare leave the room because he might run into one of his partners. The spiker highly doubted that he would be able to keep this from them if they meet again. Silent tears gathered and fell on the fabric beneath him. This was awful. The next morning, Hinata felt even worse. His body was sore and the bruises had fully developed into dark, blue and purple spots painting his skin. The wounds on his knees and knuckles throbbed, and he knew that he needed to change the bandages soon. As slowly as possible, he got up and made his way towards the bathroom, praying that no one was there yet. In his haste state, he didn't even notice that it was already 10. As soon as he did, he called his coach to explain the situation. He got sick and couldn't attend training for the rest of the week. At least the last part wasn't a lie. He cleaned the wounds and applied the new bandages to the best of his abilities before dragging himself downstairs and searching for something to eat. His boyfriends wouldn't be home for another 4 to 5 hours, so it was safe to take a short nap on the couch, right? Wrong. A loud huff to his side woke him up. Still tired and a bit fuzzy, he blinked against the light and tried to remember where he was. Could you take that stupid makeup off already? Kageyama stormed into the room angrily, with Tsukishima and Yamaguchi following closely behind. The latter frowned a little, concerned. He's right. Don't you think you are taking it a bit too far? Bitterness filled Tsukishima's voice, and he looked at Hinata with something that looked almost like disappointment. What? He could feel himself tearing up. Of course, he knew that this was his fault. He really did, but it still became too much. Shoyo? I'm sorry. He got up, a little unsteady on his feet, and intended to walk out, but was stopped by Tsukishima, who grabbed him by the wrist. Wait, we should... Hinata winced. Tsukishima's touch set his nerves on fire as soon as he put pressure on it. Can you just stop? Please. Why are you doing this? Sho? Tsukishima carefully lifted Hinata's hand to his face. The smaller tried to pull away, but stopped when the pain intensified. He winced again when the blonde very carefully started inspecting the bruises and little cuts and cracks where the skin was ripped open ever so slightly. Little traces of blood ran from the wounds when they reopened. It's not fake. What? Tsukishima leaned closer to inspect the bruise on Hinata's cheek, but the ginger flinched away. Immediately, the tallest stopped and backed away again. I'm sorry. His eyes widened in shock, and he seemed speechless for a second. They all did. Hinata felt like a deer in headlights with all of them staring at him. He couldn't hold back the tears any longer. It was the first sob that tore the silence and got everyone out of their heads. I'll get the first aid kit. He hastily left, leaving Hinata in the middle of the room like a lost puppy. It was Kageyama who approached him first. He didn't know what to say, and just slowly reached his arms out to Hinata, always on the lookout for any sign of rejection. Hinata, however, practically threw himself at the setter, even though it hurt. Kageyama lifted him gently in his arms and carried the smaller back to the couch. He wanted to give him space, but Hinata clung to him and cried in his shirt. I'm so sorry. The setter looked a little helpless towards Yamaguchi, who was quick to take a seat next to Hinata and soothingly stroked his back. Hey, Sho, shh, it's okay. We got you. You are safe. Tsukishima returned with the first aid kit and motioned for them to back away a bit so that he could have a look at the injuries. It wasn't exactly easy with Hinata holding on to Kageyama's shirt as if his life depended on it. "Show, sunshine? Would you please look at me?" Hinata nodded slowly, silent again with an exception of the occasional sob. "I'm gonna take a look at your wounds and treat them. You have to tell me if and where it hurts." He nodded again. Tsukishima first tended to his hands and very gently cleaned and wrapped each of them thoroughly, while Yams and Kags assisted him as much as they could, gently caressing the unharmed skin and whispering reassuring words and sweet promises to the spiker. When his knuckles were bandaged, Tsuki gave each of them a tender kiss. He smirked a little when he looked at them again. "You must have landed some good hits at your opponent." Hinata looked at him surprised. "They deserve it. I'm sure they look far worse with how bruised these are." His thumb tenderly rubbed over his bandaged hands, and a sad smile remained on his face. Hinata returned it. A huge weight seemed to be lifted from his shoulders upon hearing that he didn't think that Hinata was weak. He even called him strong for defending himself. Even when his face was decorated with tears and bruises, his smile was as bright as always. It was a relief, yet the total picture of Hinata smiling through the pain left all three of them fuming internally. Who would ever want to hurt him? Hinata was the embodiment of kindness, the epitome of sunshine and joy. Whoever did this was a heartless. Tsukishima took a deep breath and turned his attention to Hinata's cheek and the little cut where he was hit the hardest. "Dashi, could you prepare something to cool the bruises?" "Of course, 1 second. I don't think there's much more we can do about that. You should have put ice on it sooner." "I know." Tsukishima hated how Miki sounded right now. "Is there anything else besides the cheek and your knuckles?" The ginger avoided his gaze. "Shoyo. Please, Sho. We want to help you. Don't hide this from us. Please." Kageyama placed a light kiss on his temple. Hinata carefully lifted his shirt a little to expose the blue spots on his ribs. That and my knees, because he pushed me and I fell on the pavement." Hinata could see their masks slip. The anger, wrath even, was clearly evident on their faces. Tsukishima took a deep breath, but it did little to nothing to actually calm him. "Okay." Deep breath. "One by one, how much does it hurt?" He pointed at his chest. "Could the ribs be broken?" Hinata carefully shook his head. "Just bruised." "Are you sure?" He nodded. "Good. We can't do much. You'll just have to rest and lots and put ice on it and immediately tell us if you feel weird in any kind of way." Hinata chuckled a little. Suga said the same thing. "Well, he's right, so listen to him." "Suga knows?" Yamaguchi handed Hinata the ice and sat down beside him. Hinata nodded and his smile disappeared again. He tried to protect me. Suga probably is injured the worst out of the three of us. He looked down, his eyes fixating on an imaginary spot on the floor. 3? Is Kenma... Hinata nodded. I'm so sorry, Sho. What happened? I don't know. He teared up again. This guy... I think I ran into him, like, physically in the mall before, but then he must have followed us to the parking lot. I didn't notice. Suga saw him first, but it was too late. He just attacked. Yamaguchi reached for his hand and gripped it as tightly as he dared. Who? I don't know. Kageyama hugged him tighter and gently rubbed over his arm. Okay, we don't have to talk about it now, but please consider filing charges against that man. Hinata frowned. Like I said, we don't have to discuss that now. Sho? Why didn't you tell us? Hinata shrugged his shoulders. I didn't want to worry you. He looked at Kageyama. You have your match tomorrow, and I didn't want to be a distraction. I don't care. You love volleyball. I do, but I love you too. You are more important than a lost match. He lifted Hinata's chin to make him look at him. Never forget that, okay? That goes for all of us. Yamaguchi nodded eagerly. You don't think The ginger took a shaky breath. He hesitated. Thank you. Of course, Sho. We love you. Yes. Tsukishima eyed him a little suspicious, but nodded. We do, so please don't keep things from us. Especially not things like this. I would have never forgiven myself if one of your injuries had turned out to be more serious and I wouldn't be able to help. I'm sorry. Shh, don't worry about that now. We got you. He sniffled a little and snuggled closer to Kageyama. Kageyama's match the next day was extraordinary. Both due to an outstanding amount of mistakes at the beginning and the strongest comeback in the past years. Kageyama's play that day was aggressive and fast, and for a moment Hinata was afraid that he might fall back into old patterns. But just after they lost the first set and when the second began, he was back on the court, still aggressive, still incredibly fast, but now with a warmed-up team at his back. They won the second set 25-20 and the third 25-18. Thanks for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the second part of the pretend to get beat up challenge, kind of. And I hope you forgive me for, hurting Hinata. But like, it was for the plot. If you liked it, consider leaving a like because it really helps my channel grow. And if you want to see more, consider subscribing so you won't miss out on anything in the future. And if you have any requests, put them under the community post for requests so that I can make a video out of them. Now, have a wonderful and an amazing day. I hope to see you soon for the third part. And, well, see you then!